You're not getting away!
Stay back! Don't touch me!
It's over!
No!
The sun had barely climbed above the cottonwoods along the Yellowstone River when Clara Whitmore realized she had run as far as her strength would carry her. Her dress was torn along the thigh where a broken limb had snagged the cloth. One leg twisted painfully beneath her as she struggled against a fallen tree trunk. The river rolled slowly behind her, heavy and quiet, carrying the smell of mud and summer heat. She pulled once more. The fabric refused to move. Footsteps approached through the grass. Clara froze. A tall rancher stepped into view from the riverbank trail. His face was lined by years of wind and sun, the look of a man who had spent most of his life outdoors. Silas Crow paused when he saw her pinned against the tree. From a distance the scene looked wrong. Too close. Too vulnerable. Silas didn't rush forward. Instead he knelt beside the branch carefully, keeping his eyes level and his voice steady. "Hold still," he said quietly. With the tip of his knife he slid beneath the trapped fabric and cut it free from the splintered limb. Clara gasped as her leg finally slipped loose. When she tried to stand, pain buckled her knee. Silas caught her elbow before she could fall. "I ain't the kind of man who takes what isn't offered," he said calmly. Only then did he notice the bruise on her thigh. It was dark. Clear. And shaped like a man's hand. "That bruise didn't come from a tree," Silas said. Clara swallowed slowly. "My husband is dead," she replied. "But in Bitterroot Valley that doesn't end a marriage." Silas frowned. "It just changes who claims you." The words hung between them like a storm cloud. She explained slowly. Her father-in-law, Ezekiel Whitmore, believed a widow still belonged to the husband's family. The land her husband left behind was valuable, and Ezekiel wanted it signed over. When Clara refused, the old man tried another way. Force. She struck him with a lamp and fled before sunrise. Now he and his son were hunting her. Silas studied the riverbank mud. Fresh hoofprints. 2 riders. Not far behind. "You can ride?" he asked. Clara hesitated. Men had offered help before. Help that always came with a price. "You don't owe me a thing," Silas said. The words mattered. She nodded. Silas mounted his horse and helped her climb behind him, keeping space between them as they turned toward his ranch 3 miles away. Behind them, 2 riders appeared on the ridge. Silas Crow's ranch sat along the open edge of Paradise Valley where the mountains stood like quiet witnesses. He didn't ride straight to the house. Instead he stopped first at the corral where he could see the road clearly. Clara drank from a water barrel while Silas cleaned a scrape on her leg with a rag and a small tin of pine-smelling salve. He worked without fuss. Finally he nodded toward the cloth bag clutched in her hands. "That yours?" "Yes." "What's in it?" Clara hesitated. "Something they want." Inside the house she slowly poured the contents onto the table. Papers. Deeds. Promissory notes. Silas studied them carefully. Every document carried the same pattern. Widows transferring land and cattle rights to Ezekiel Whitmore under something called family protection. 4 women. 4 signatures. For quiet thefts done with ink instead of violence. "And he wanted yours next," Silas said. Clara nodded. "He said it was tradition." Silas leaned back. "This ain't tradition," he said. "It's robbery wearing a Sunday shirt." Outside the house, horses approached. Hoofs stopped in the yard. A knock struck the door. Hard. Silas stepped outside. 2 riders waited. Ezekiel Whitmore sat tall in the saddle, gray beard trimmed short, eyes sharp and cold. Beside him stood Jonah Whitmore, younger and quicker to anger. "We're looking for a woman," Ezekiel said calmly. "She's family." Silas rested one hand on the doorframe. Lots of women in Montana, he replied. You'll have to narrow that down. Jonah smirked. Clara. My brother's widow. She ain't livestock, Silas said. You don't track her with a rope. Jonah swung down from his horse. She stole land papers. There it was. Not family. Not honor. Money. Silas shrugged slightly. Then let a lawman in Livingston decide. Jonah lunged forward angrily. Silas shoved him back and the two men crashed into the dirt. Dust flew as they grappled under the summer sun. Ezekiel's hand drifted toward his gun. Silas noticed. He drew his Colt just enough for the steel to show. You draw, Silas said calmly, and this yard changes forever. The valley went quiet. Finally Ezekiel lowered his hand. We'll return, he said. Then the Whitmores rode away. But Silas knew men like that didn't ride away without a plan. By evening Silas and Clara were riding toward Livingston with the documents hidden in his saddlebag. Halfway across the valley a rifle shot cracked through the air. The bullet struck dirt in front of the horse. Jonah Whitmore had returned. Silas turned sharply and guided the horse behind a line of rocks. He pulled Clara down beside him. More shots followed. Jonah fired fast. Too fast. Silas waited for the moment Jonah paused to reload. Then he fired once. Jonah's horse screamed and threw him to the ground. The younger man scrambled up and fired wildly. The bullet tore through Silas's upper arm. Pain burned through his shoulder. Hand her over, Ezekiel called from the hill. Silas looked at Clara beside him. If they take me, she whispered, I won't survive. Silas already knew. He stepped from behind the rock. Livingston, he said loudly. That's where this ends. Jonah rushed forward again. Bad choice. Silas fired once. Jonah collapsed in the grass. Ezekiel froze. You killed my son, he said. He raised his gun. Silas fired first. The valley fell silent. They buried the Whitmores before nightfall. Not out of forgiveness. But because even hard men deserved earth over their bones. The next morning Silas and Clara rode to Livingston with the papers. The truth about Ezekiel Whitmore's land scheme spread quickly through Bitterroot Valley. For widows had nearly lost everything. Now they didn't. Clara stayed at Crow Ranch. Not as property. Not as charity. But as someone who had fought to keep her freedom. One morning Silas left a small iron key on the kitchen table without explanation. Clara picked it up slowly. From that day forward the house belonged to both of them. Because sometimes the most important thing a person can do is simple. To see the truth. To refuse silence. And to stand when others look away.